back here in Cartersville, Georgia, once again at the Oak Hill Cemetery, and we're here to see the grave of one of the most influential evangelists of the 19th century. Kind of think of him as the Billy Graham of his time, but possibly even more influential. And that's the grave of Sam P. Jones. It's claimed that Sam Jones had converted the lives of over 500,000 people during his lifetime. Sam Jones was a failed lawyer and once a teacher. He was actually taught by Rebecca Latimer Felton and her husband at one point. He's not a Cartersville native, but he grew up in Cartersville. So he does have close ties with the Feltons. Sam Jones preached that idleness and drunkenness was a huge threat to men, and that was his main crowd that he preached to, because men were, during that time, the hardest to sway or the hardest to influence. But after his death, it was very well known that he had influenced the lives of many people. While his body was on display at the Rotundo in Atlanta, over 30,000 people came to pay their respect. Now, what's interesting about Sam Jones is he was a Methodist preacher. Unlike Billy Graham, who was a Baptist preacher, both were fairly intense with their sermons. And now, usually when you see an intense preacher, we often think that they are a Baptist preacher or sometimes even a Pentecostal preacher. But this was the early 19th century. Most preaching under all denominations were fairly intense. Mainly all of them flirted with this fire and brimstone tactic of preaching. This was during the time of like the great revivals. Here we are coming up on the grave of Sam Jones. Now, coming up those stairs back there, you'll be facing the back of Sam Jones' grave, but this is the front view of Sam Jones' grave, and it does list his name on the front right here, and the family buried around him. This larger monument is obviously dedicated to him, but it is a fairly large plot for his family. So right here we have Mary Myrtle Jones, not to be confused with his sister Mary Jones. This is his daughter, Mary Jones. Reverend Robert Wilkerson Jones is his son. And over here is his wife and his son, Sam P. Jones. Over here are some more. This is his daughter-in-law. And one of their infants that passed. What's interesting on the back of this, it says, "Suffer little children to go unto me." Over here we have some more family members. I assume children. He did have quite a bit of kids. Possibly grandchildren buried over here. Their deaths do range in the 80s, 60s, 60s, early 1900s, still a grandchild, 1890, possibly a grandchild as well, daughter, and daughter. And if you'll look over here at this mini mausoleum right here, that's actually the grave of Rebecca Latimer Felton, a close mentor to Sam P. Jones. And you may not be able to see it, but just far back behind those trees is the grave of Amos T. Ackerman, the only Confederate to hold public office for the United States during Reconstruction. I believe he has some quarrels with the Jones at some point. I believe he got into a fight with one of Sam's kids. Now, in this fairly short research on Sam Jones, I'm not going to say too much on his political beliefs. In my sort of research, couldn't find too much on that anyhow. So I'm not going to say whether he was for or against segregation. Maybe some of you may know about that. I know that Rebecca Latimer Felton was, but he indefinitely contributed to the prohibition of alcohol through his preachings. I'm sure he changed the opinions on alcohol, good or bad, of many. So Sam Jones was a very influential evangelist. Having 30,000 people come visit your grave during at the time of your death to pay respects says a lot, and to essentially just be a preacher to be laid in the rotundo, it's a very, very, very big deal. But you know, he's obviously done a lot for Georgia, being laid there, and then back to his final resting place in Cartersville, Georgia. But like I said, it's super interesting to see essentially the Billy Graham of the 19th century here in Cartersville, Georgia, at a, for his influence, a small family plot. But that's beside the fact. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you want to see the other places that I've been to, click the link in the description and it'll take you to an interactive map. If there's any other place you want to see me document, it could be cemeteries, graves, abandoned places, dark tourism spots, leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll try to get to it. But for now, thanks for watching, everyone.